Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody around the world who's listening to this presentation. While I have a political strategy background, today's conversation is going to be about the C factor, which is really from a communication perspective that I'm trying to look at. And the C factor really is about two things. One, the communication, and two, the connection with the people. How does communication create the connection with the people? There's a lot in the title of what we see because what's happening in India since the election of Mr. Modi since 2014 is very contrary to the past 60 years history of Indian politics. It's the first time in the history that you have a government named behind the prime minister. It's the Modi Sarkar. It's the Modi government, not the government of the BJP, which was traditionally the Labour government or the Conservative government or the Congress government as the parliamentary democracy mandated. So there is a certain strategic shift that happened when we went from a parliamentary democracy for sort of politics to a quasi-presidential form of positioning Mr. Modi as the leader of the government, and therefore it becomes the Modi Sarkar or the Modi government. So what lessons do we have from the seventh year it's the seventh year in office now, completing his sixth term this year, and then so moving on to the seventh year, and he continues to be popular. Let's try to delve into that. But first, let's spend a few minutes talking about the complexity of India. Of course, we are a nation of contradictions. We are a home to about 17% of the population of the world, which is about almost two times that of Europe. So we have two Europes built into India, and we call ourselves the United States of India because every 100 kilometers, the topography changes, the landscape changes, the color changes, the food changes, the clothing changes. And that is sort of typified in the fact that we have almost 28 states, which we are a quasi sort of federal democracy, which means states have a certain amount of freedom, and we have 8 centrally administered territories. But more importantly, we speak 22 languages, recognize 22 languages and 55 dialects officially. So communicating in India can be an extremely arduous task. And anybody who thinks that India is a singular communication market makes a very, very, very strategic mistake. The other part that is important from a communication standpoint is the fact that while we continue to say that we are 73.5 or almost 3 out of every 4 Indians are now literate, but less than 1 out of 10 actually has a higher education degree. So it has meaning on the way and the formats that we have of our communication. The last most and an important aspect is reach. India, as they say, would stay in its villages, and almost 65%. It used to be 75-25, now about 65-35 at this point of time, is residing in a rural dwelling. Away from a city as a minimum number of population, and we qualify rural dwelling by both socioeconomic classification. So it is the United States of India, and it is a land of contradictions, and you need to recognize that. An astute politician recognizes that when we talk about communication landscape of India. So in terms of mediums, yes, the traditional media continues to dominate in many ways. The increasing penetration of television at 66%, and you'll see from the left side of the screen the two most populous states, which is in blue, which is home to it is supposed to be the 9th largest country in the world, which is the state of Uttar Pradesh, which is in blue, has very poor penetration, and of course Bihar, which is right next to it, is less than 30%. So television continues to be an important format, and again, most of it is terrestrial television. Cable satellite homes are about 250 million. So that's one aspect of television. And then, of course, there's a growing radio presence. And you'll see that in the context of how a smart politician has used radio. And, of course, the traditional sort of print media, where regional languages, as we talked about in my earlier slide, continue to be the top 10. The largest circulating English daily, which is the Times of India, is actually does not feature in the top 10 largest circulating dailies in the country, and most of them tend to be of the regional language. So traditional media is a mainstay form of communication, but also recognizing the growing social media presence, which is in India. Now, we've obviously skipped a generation of desktops or notebooks and moved from desktop computers straight into hand phones. So, of the 1.3 approximate billion people that I shared with you, about 69-70% in the rural economy, we have about 9% penetration of internet, and about half of that on social media, and most of it coming out of mobile subscription penetration. So clearly, a smartphone penetration over the last several years, as you can see on the left side of the screen, automatically leads to a growing adoption of social media. And as the smartphones rise, we start to see a good distribution and a large sort of distribution of internet users, which is around 2029, which is the younger population of India. So when you look at it, there is a holistic environment to be able to be tapped into, and a smart communicator would be able to use these platforms to reach the new audiences as well as the traditional audiences of in India. Let's talk briefly about the man. He, as Lionel Messi says, he worked his entire life to become an overnight sensation. Mr. Modi is not an overnight sensation. He's been around for a long period of time, served 3 terms as the chief minister of the Gujarat state, born a Virgo in 1950, took oath of office of the prime minister in 2014. Now, I talk about his journey from a tea stall operator to One Racecourse Road, which is the official residence of the prime minister, or from a pracharak to a prime minister. What is a pracharak? Pracharak is an Hindi version of a pitcher. He is an advocate or a squire or an amplifier of the ideological organization of the RSS, of which he was a member for many, many years since his teenage years. So classically, Mr. Modi trained to be a communicator. He spent his lifetime advocating the philosophy and advancing the ideology of the RSS, and that was from where he came into politics. And that's his sort of foundation. And people often admire his great oration, but when you have a lifetime of practice, I mean, that's where the advantage comes from. And I think he using his years as a pracharak, as a pitcher, as an advocate, as an amplifier of the ideologue, he understood the value of the communication that connects, because obviously his key task as a pracharak was to advance the ideology of RSS to generate the membership base and expand the reach of the organization. So over the years, he obviously mastered and understood the value of the C factor, which is the communication that connects to its citizens. So that's brand Namo, as he calls him, as he's been branded in the country. When you sort of look at the fact that, he obviously had a astute understanding of the communication that connects, but what does the connection? Well, you obviously can't have communication without substance, and therefore he recognized the fact that a large part of the country, or what we call Bharat, the alternate name for India, or the Indian name for India, is Bharat, as it translated in Devanagari or Hindi, which also means the other India, or the what we call the bottom of the pyramid India, or the disenfranchised audiences of India. And when you think about his signature programs that he has advocated over the years, they tend to be rooted in the reality of the citizens of Bharat. One, the universal health system, or the PMJ, or hygiene or clean India, which is about open defecation, digital India to bring e-governance, the financial inclusion program, and his latest missive, the Atmanirbhar, or the self-reliant India, to create jobs, greater employment, or what we is akin to the fact that this is the India first, akin to America first, or Europe first, or Japan first kind of policies that you're seeing, which encourages greater self-reliance and even holds greater significance now in the geopolitics, as we see global supply chains readjust themselves in the post-COVID scenario, in the post-China world. And it's interesting, we are in Australia, that we are hosting this festival, and we are talking about Quad, the growing Asia Pacific, regional Pacific partnership between India, Japan, Australia, and America. So in that sense, in the first year of his office, he understood the underlying connections and programs that he would think would fuel his connection with the people. Of course, being young at heart, he is now 60 plus, and almost his lifetime coincides with that of the Republic of India. 1950 is when we adopted the Constitution of India. He was born in 1950, and as we celebrate the deep diamond jubilee of our independence of India, we sort of almost mirror the life. So if you think about what he did with the programs, and about a 360-degree coverage of sort of seamlessly bringing in traditional media and social media to wrap around his programs, he sort of understood the growing importance of the new media, the digital media, to reach the younger audiences, which form a large demographic base of this nation today, and obviously have the largest penetration of smartphones in the country, therefore have access to internet, and therefore penetration of mobile. He obviously went high on digital and mobile right from inception. During his election, I worked with him closely at that point of time, and he was very big on tech and actually using digital in a significant way to connect to the growing sort of younger demographic of the nation. So when you think about his website, there's a lot of personalized content that you can find there, which you can actually amplify from there. He's done a lot of work on digital. He's on social, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I'll share with you some of those. He also uses the email sort of updates very regularly, and of course, he's sort of big on mobile apps and direct communication via SMS. He's also very big on radio. His what we call Man Ki Baat, essentially a heart-to-heart talk with the people of India, a monthly program that he runs on the radio, both AM and FM radio channels, which creates a dialogue with the citizens directly. Now, if you see in this 360-degree coverage, Mr. Modi's history as chief minister isn't sort of covered in glory because of what happened in the first couple of years of his tenure there in terms of the communal situation, and he was broadly rejected by the mainstream media, negatively portrayed. And I think from there he established the fact that he would like to connect to his constituents directly, and therefore he would bypass any editorial scrutiny or any editorial driven communication, and yet he would take his own message to the people directly. So you'll see that's something that he does astutely and holistically. Some examples. He sort of looks at three levels. There's Narendra Modi, there's the Gov, the .gov, and then there's the PM India. So the three sort of roles that he has as the man, the prime minister, the head of the government. He sort of combines them seamlessly. So you will find the Namo app, you will find the Gov MyGov ad, you'll find the PMO app on the system, and he has a significantly large followers. He's the second sort of the most followed Indian on Twitter with almost 63 million followers. And interestingly, he also has presence on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So holistic sort of, and if you look at the screen here on the right hand side, the Namo Man Ka Baat, that's also an app which is a recording of all his monthly chats on radio with the people. So very aggressive use of media. Now you may say, well, that's par for the course. Actually, not in India. It's unique in this context, and I've been following elections for a fairly significant amount of time, and I've worked with several of the people in India across the political hue. I have never experienced in the last decade the most aggressive use of direct communication and connection with the people of India. This is the first for any Indian prime minister ever in this country, and obviously it has shown some results. So if you look at the way he's presented himself, there's brand Modi, there's brand PM, and then there's the MyGov, which is a set of signature programs. There are actually about 7 or 8. I've only taken 4 or 5 of them to exemplify what I'm saying. I'm sensitive about the time. Therefore, I will keep it focused. And I'll sort of give you some real examples of each of his program. Each of his program obviously requires a large amount of mobilization. I'm not wasting your time going into the mobilization aspect, but there is an actual huge amount of mobilization. Suffice to say that he works on every of his program in a campaign mode. And I think that's the second lesson. It's not about just a policy initiative, it's a program. And he works on it on a campaign mode, mobilizing his party, mobilizing his government, mobilizing the citizens. And he works across languages, he works across formats on a campaign mode, radio, mobile, website, posters, banners, outreach, rallies, actual work across the board. And this is just an example of the Swachh Bharat or the Clean India program, where we talked about reducing open defecation and building toilets. And that's the advantage of the campaign mode that he has. That when he started in May of 2014, we had about 40% coverage of defecation-free villages, and we look at 2019, which is a 5-year window, claimed to be about 90% plus, almost touching. And when we look at almost 65%, which is 3 out of every 4 people are now are open defecation free, which involved behavioral change. It involved building community toilets, individual toilets. So, I mean, that's the number of household toilets that have been built to solve one problem. Now, these are the kinds of things that touch the lives of the people at the bottom end of the pyramid. So that's one aspect of it as to how he sees life and connection. Then, of course, when I say play, succeed, repeat, the second part was what we call the financial inclusion, or the Jan Dhan, which was all about creating minimum balance, zero balance accounts with banks for the people of the nation. And again, a campaign mode, an important part. And of course, we've now completed about 6 years of that. Both private banking institutions and public banking institutions have been set up. You'll see again a mission mode work to it, mobilizing different forces. And when you think about the the impact, we today have about 10 billion US in deposits. Some of them, of course, are zero balance accounts, but we're about $10 billion in accounts. We've got about 255 million followers of people who opened accounts. Now, why is this important? And from a connection and a communication, while we went in the connection, this became a prelude to offering direct cash transfer to the households for a large part of either the subsidy or the subsidy schemes or the employment schemes or the universal health schemes that the government initiated, which of course had a leakage, as our Prime Minister, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, said, of the 10 rupees that the government spends, only one reaches the people to whom it is supposed to reach, 9 gets leaked in the system. Well, he's trying to reverse that trend to say, well, at least 1 gets leaked in the system and the 9 reaches the people. So you start to see, well, I have now looked at hygiene. I'm getting the money that is due to me. I'm getting the full subsidy. A large part of the subsidy that is due to me, it's coming to me directly. It's touching the lives of the people. Second, the third, well, building the infrastructure around it. The national broadband mission has been going on much before the Modi government, but he sort of rebranded it to Digital India for a new India and created a core sort of program around it, which is to ensure that 100% of the villages have a broadband connection to bring e-governance, digitization of land record solution, digital lockers, identification, social security, all of that sort of building that to bring government closer to the people of the nation. When you think about the next aspect of it, which is the world's largest universal healthcare program. It's even bigger than Medicare or Obamacare, as it's called in the US, which seeks to provide 500,000 Indian rupees coverage to over 500 million people, 50 crore people across the nation, which are below the poverty line, to provide access to healthcare, to trees almost like 390 sort of specialities which are driven cashless across private and public institutions, health institutions around India. What's unique about this and all these programs is the fact that you will see that he has created dashboards of progress. So people pretty much also know at any point of time what's the progress. So he's brought some level of transparency and removed opaqueness from a large part of the programs that used to be the traditional way in which governments would say very, very little information available. He's trying to bring information closer to the people, and he's touching the lives of the people at the bottom end of the pyramid. Last but not the least, same case for self-reliant India. So work in progress. You'll see that that's something which is a post-COVID phenomena. He's getting into the mission mode, but he understood immediately the requirement of what will be the post-COVID sort of impact of what needs to get done. He's sort of create a program that is the resetting of the global supply chain, and he's got a clear mandate about what he wants to do. And that's really the thing. He creates soundbite-led, simple formats for people to relate to the focus of his government. Of course, coupled with his great oration that he has practiced over the years, you will wonder why he has been so successful. Again, the proof of the pudding is in eating it. It's his 7th year in office. His approval ratings are close to 60%. Even President Obama, in his second term re-election, was at approval ratings of almost 40-45%. So again, very, very much he has the affection and the confidence of the people of the nation, and across a range of celebrities in film and sports, he continues to be to be the most popular on Twitter. Again, and what you see on the right side is our prime ministers from the birth of this nation, and look at his approval rating at this point of time of 37%. Who would be the best prime minister? Who has been the best prime minister of India? I think even Pandit Nehru, Mr. Vajpayee, who was the ultimate statesman of the BJP and the NDA from his own sort of inkling, he sort of leads them by about 20 plus percentage points. So clearly, a man who understood the pulse of the nation, understood the issues, and has then created a communication framework that is holistic, recognizes and works with the demographics and the sociographics of this nation. I am at 25 minutes plus time, so thank you very much for this opportunity for the presentation.